Okay. Welcome, geekies, to another episode of Those Couple of Geeks. I am your host this week, Vana, with my co host, Adam.
Hello.
And we have a very special guest with us today on the show. Geekies, welcome Nick, aka Ocarina Owl. A little background about our guest: Nick is an amazing musician and cosplayer who produces original compositions, including, and please correct me if I say this wrong, Ameyakan?
Meyokan.
Amayokin, thank you, which just released October 9th. So say hello to Nick.
Hello, everybody. It's so great to be on here on our podcast today. And I just want to say a huge thank you to Adam and Vanna. I really love and I heard about this Couple of Geeks podcast on Instagram. So I was absolutely thrilled to be able to be a part of it and to just have the opportunity to share my music with everybody else. So I just want to say a huge thank you to that. And I also want to say a huge thank you to them for kind of like introducing me to this podcast format because it's kind of new to me. So I appreciate y'all being here today. And I'm so excited to get started with this episode and tell you all about my music and what I do.
Yay! Welcome to the show. We are so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, how we start all of our episodes is we have, it feels so weird to say, what's freaking your geek? And it's just a time where we share something kind of fun and nerdy that we're excited about that week. So, how about y'all? What is freaking your geeks?
Oh man, that's a tough one because honestly, I've been really excited about a couple of animes that are coming out this upcoming month. So honestly,
Ooh, us too.
I have been rewatching Bleach. I don't know if y'all are Bleach fans, but oh my goodness, like because Bleach, went on hiatus somewhere in 2013, 2012. I forget the exact date of when it went on hiatus and like the anime stopped producing. Of course, the manga kept going and it finished, but then we have the anime returning. So honestly, that's been freaking my geek because I've been posting all over TikTok, all over Instagram, the things that I'm so excited about with the Bleach's new theme music that's coming out. And honestly, because it's supposed to air, or rather, it aired on the 9th of October. I'm really, really excited about it. I just haven't had a chance to watch it really yet because it's been really busy. What with all the orchestral composition that I had going that is like has taken up 99% of my time, but I can't wait to sit down and watch it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. I'm also extremely excited about just like getting to finish Bleach in the anime format. I've read
Right?
all of the manga, so I do know what
Me
happens,
too.
but I'm still like I feel like the anime format is just going to be so good.
Yeah.
Well, and I heard that they're going to make it a little bit different than the manga, so it feels more fleshed out. And so I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I
Plus
love
just
that.
the animation has gotten so much better over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would agree. That's freaking my geek lately as well too. Is that just all the new anime? So what do we have this month of October? We've got Bleach, we've got Chainsaw Man, we've got Spy Family. If you're a Spy Family fan, yeah, we've got a bunch.
MHA.
Mob Psycho 100, yeah, MHA, yeah. There's so many good ones. We're truly eating well in October when it comes to all the different anime.
Yes, I love that. That's such a good way to put it. And honestly, I am so excited about it. It's like you guys said, the animation is just like completely revamped and it's like it has the same character designs as Bleach from like the late 2010s, but it's like up to a 10 in animation and movement and like frames and oh my gosh, effect.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
good.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for sharing what is freaking your geek this week. As we jump into the main content of our episode, we are going to be interviewing Nick, so it'll be kind of a back and forth, questiony style. But yeah, that way we can learn a little bit about Nick's music, about more of what he has coming out, as well as what are some fun, geeky things about him. So I will let Adam get started with our questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nick, my first question is basically how did you get your start in music and composing?
So I always knew I wanted to be a musician since I was really young. I originally was born in Mexico, in Tlalnepantla de Vaz, Mexico, and I loved music since I was a young child. My father always played lots of classical orchestral pieces, such as Dvorak's New World Symphony or Carlos Chavez Sinfonia India. A lot of classical composers, both from European traditional standpoints and also Latin American classical composers, which are a lot less known. So I've always really enjoyed listening to classical music. And when I was 12 years old, I actually started playing the cello. That's when we moved here to the States. And I started my career in music just in orchestra, like really simple orchestra pieces. And that really instigated and instilled a love of music in myself. I send the biggest shout out to my cello teacher, Mrs. Tovar, who was so supportive of me doing music and really like just nurtured my love for music by teaching me cello, which I absolutely appreciated a whole bunch. She's my orchestra director. And then because of her, I decided to major at university. I went to University of Texas at Arlington, and I got a degree in music education. So basically, I wanted to also be a teacher, and I was a teacher for 7 years. I taught in elementary, and I actually taught ocarina, which is another cool story. The thing that kind of brought me towards like playing many different instruments was my finding of the ocarina and my discovery that the ocarina was such a cool instrument, that it was real and that it was playable and it could sound really good. Those were things that just inspired and basically kind of formed who I am as a musician today.
That's super cool. Yeah, I also did not know that the ocarina was like a real instrument until The Legend of Zelda. I think that's when it became like a little more well known as an instrument. When did you first start playing the ocarina?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking, Adam. So I started playing the ocarina in 2015. And like I said, one of my favorite, I would probably say my favorite instrument in the world is ocarina. I play about 10 instruments, which is crazy to even say out loud. But I have a lot of instruments that I play. Some traditional, some classical. Like I play cello. I'm learning a lot of violin. I play a little bit of piano. I play basically a lot of them, but the ones that I feel really, really like are my main instruments are cello and ocarina. And the ocarina I discovered both through Legend of Zelda and also through my experience teaching recorder. I didn't particularly enjoy teaching recorder at my classroom, and a lot of my kids also didn't really enjoy learning recorder. I mean, some did and some didn't, but the majority of them didn't have a great time learning it. And so I thought to myself, what's something I could do as a teacher to engage them a lot more and to just find something that is, like that I love and that they love. And I stumbled upon a company called STL Ocarina, and shout out to them as well. They're really cool. They sent me a free sample of an ocarina, which was really, really awesome of them. And they said, if you're interested in learning more about our educational program, let us know. And so I started to, since then, teach ocarina. Long story short, 7 years of just teaching ocarina in the classroom, which my kids loved. We had shows, we had performances, we had recitals. It was the most fun ever. And the coolest part was when a lot of them that were both into music and into video games, they discovered that the ocarina, because kids nowadays, they don't start out playing Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask, but
No.
they discovered that ocarina has to do with Zelda, and they said, wow, that's amazing. And so I would just play different themes on them for the ocarina, like this one. But those are just themes
No, that was awesome.
My kids love. Thank you so much, Adam. Those are and I love your excited face, Vana. Like that's the exact face that my kids like have whenever I would play ocarina for them. They would be like, "Oh my gosh, I know that song. I know that song," and they would just love it. They would be all about it. And the fact that they could learn it too was a really big empowering tool. Just like when my teacher taught me cello when I was, younger. I felt like I could make that same difference in their lives, which I absolutely appreciated and enjoyed. So yeah, that's my story of how I got started with the ocarina. Since then, I also started a YouTube channel because it got really annoying to have to explain over and over again what the first lesson of how to play ocarina was. So I just turned it into a video, and people loved it. It got like 1,000 views or something like that in 2016, 2017. And so I just kept posting channels on my YouTube channel about ocarina, about how to play, about some of the notes, strategies, different songs, Zelda tutorials, all these things. And so basically my channel was known as like Ocarina Owl, the place that you go to learn ocarina. So that was really cool.
Thank you so much for sharing. That was so cool. Yeah, I'm geeking out. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
So, can you tell us about some of the compositions that you've been working on more recently?
Sure. As you know, my heritage as a Latin American person, as a person of Mexico, plays a really big role in me making my music and designing my music. One of the really wonderful, wonderful gifts that my father gave me. My father is an artist. His name is Manuel Miranda. He, like I said, put classical music on when I was really young and when I was really little. And one of the things I knew a lot about, but my colleagues and friends didn't really know a lot about, was Mexican composers and Latin American composers. And so one of my biggest inspirations in music is Carlos Chavez. His Sinfonía India, if you haven't ever heard it, is on my absolute like to listen to, because it's just a symphony in a symphonic setting, in an orchestral setting, with traditional sounds and traditional instruments, such as what you would find in Mexico. Some of the traditional instruments are traditional drums, like a huehuet drum, which is like a really kind of like conical drum with a skin head on top, and just like a really kind of like traditional sound. He wasn't aware of the ocarina and like the history behind it, so I don't think he ever wrote anything for like traditional or primitive flute or anything like that. So he definitely didn't really like write for that in the orchestral setting. But my newest composition, Omeyocan, which came out on November the 9th, it has 5 ocarinas in the actual symphony. So it's like ocarinas are not normally in orchestral settings. They almost never are. There's very few examples, very few and far between, and they're almost always used for texture. Like they're used like really like to do little things like something like that. But I actually use mine for melody. A big melody of my symphony, I'm going to play it for you. That's the main melody of the first movement, which I named it in Nahuatl as Itzcoatl, which means Song of the Obsidian Serpent, which in Aztec mythology, because this piece is deeply Aztec inspired, in Aztec mythology, the serpent represents renewal, and the color obsidian represents introspection, like a mirror, like an obsidian mirror. So it's like Song of the Obsidian Serpent, which has to do with renewal of the self. And I think that that's like a really cool thing to be able to bring a lot of mythology to it. The performance of the piece will be available on YouTube, and it'll be available on my YouTube channel if you want to take a look and listen to it. It's, like I said, heavily inspired by Carlos Chavez and his work on Sinfonía India, and a lot of other Latin American composers such as Silvestre Revueltas or even Heitor Villalobos from Brazil, and a lot of the Latin American composers in all of Latin America, not just in Mexico, have inspired my work to bring traditional elements of our music in Latin America into the classical symphony. And that's really what I wanted to do and how I wanted to present that. So thank you for asking about my latest composition, Van. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's amazing. I can't wait to listen to it.
Thank you.
I know. Yeah, it's really cool. It's so fun getting to actually watch you right now play it. I know that for those listening, obviously they wouldn't be able to see that, so you have to check out the YouTube channel for those listening, because it's really interesting getting to see the finger work and all that stuff that goes into something like this as well too.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Okay, I did do a little bit of deep diving on your Instagram and on your YouTube channel and stuff, and I also saw that you kind of have some other geeky interests as well, so to speak.
Yes.
For example, cosplaying. Myself and Vana, we love to cosplay. We just actually recently got done at a convention here in San Antonio called San Japan.
San Japan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were there, and we cosplayed different costumes all 3 days. So we were Nami and Luffy day one.
Man, I was gonna go to San Japan too.
It was really fun. If you get the chance to go next year, you should.
Cool. I love that.
And we did Zenitsu and Inosuke from Demon Slayer.
Oh, cool.
Day 2. I was Zenitsu because I'm blonde, and then she was Inosuke. And then day 3 we did Natsu and Lucy from Fairy Tail.
Very cool. Oh my
So-
gosh. Then hang on.
So
I
we're
have
big
one.
cosplayers.
I have one song I have to play then for you.
I want to like applaud every time you do. That was so cool.
Thank you.
Oh my
I
gosh.
appreciate
Yes.
that.
I love that you just like whipped out some Fairy Tail on us. That's awesome.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
like my jam. Like Adam always gives me a hard time. He's really good at knowing like placing
Mhm.
music and theme songs, and I'm really not. But that one, like anytime that one comes on, I'm like, oh, I know that one.
Yeah, that one's so iconic though, because honestly, Fairy Tail's been on my mind recently because I just finished like the really last couple of episodes for it, and like it's like the ending, like it's very emotional. I feel like, and you know, a lot of people are always like Fairy Tail this and that. I like Fairy Tail for a lot of reasons, and I think one of my favorite reasons for liking Fairy Tail is the music. You know, the music is incredibly Celtic and Celtic inspired. And it just, they play a lot of tin whistle on it. And one of my favorite things to do is like to play a lot of tin whistle songs on the ocarina because they just translate so perfectly well, a lot of them. And I actually did a cover of Snow Fairy, the first opening, on my channel. So definitely check that one out as well.
Yes. Absolutely. Everyone check that out. I mean, yeah, that's really cool.
Thank you.
For sure. Okay, so I know you've gone to some. What do you usually cosplay?
Oh, yes. Okay, so I'm sorry. Yes, back to the question. Okay, so one of my favorite animes, and I'm a very recent cosplayer, you have to understand. I haven't been cosplaying for as long as I've been making music. I've been making music for so much longer than I've been cosplaying, but my favorite characters to cosplay are from My Hero Academia or from Bleach, because they're my absolute favorite shows. Like, I have a lot of favorite shows. It's kind of hard because I like a lot of anime, but I have to pick those as kind of my top 2 just because Bleach was my first anime, so there's a nostalgia factor there. And I really am a fan of MHA because I can really relate to the main character, Deku. And my favorite character in MHA is actually Aizawa, their teacher, because I'm a teacher too. So, like, looking at him and looking at how he cares for his students is, like, one of my favorites. I'm so excited about MHA this month. Like I said, I haven't had time to catch up. But like October 1st is when it came out, so like really looking forward to catching up on that and like watching anime now that I have this next week to kind of sit down and relax a little bit more. But I like to cosplay as Hero named Eraserhead, Aizawa. That's one of my favorite cosplays. I have the hair for it too, so I don't really have to put on a wig. He kind of looks like me, and all I have to do is not sleep for a while, and that'll be perfect. Like I just show up as Eraserhead. I put on some goggles and a long sleeve shirt. I'm there. Like that's perfect. So that's one of my favorite cosplays to just pull off. I did cosplay as Inosuke when I went to Corpus Christi Comic Con. That was so much fun when I did that. People loved it. I got the mask. I do like Demon Slayer too, and I thought that was a really cool one to do. And one of the ones that I haven't cosplayed as, but I want to, is I want to be Link or Dark Link.
That'd be pretty good.
Yeah. Either one of those, I really want to do that because I feel like I would really fit that mold perfectly. I just gotta get my elf ears. I'm almost done with the outfit. And then I guess the last one would be I want to cosplay as either Urahara from Bleach or Ichigo. Either one.
Oh, those are all
good.
awesome.
Thank you guys. I appreciate that question. What about you guys? Do you have any plans?
Oh, that's a good question. We've done a bunch. So next year we've been debating. There's a Comic-Con kind of thing that's coming up in Austin, like for anime. I can't remember what it's called, IkiCon. And so we've been debating if we want to try to sign up for that. But if we do, we'll have to revisit. But I know for next year for San Japan, the theme is like sailors. So we were gonna look at being One Piece characters again, maybe switching it up. But we've also been talking about being Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask.
Yeah. I have one more song for you. So this isn't an anime song, but since you said sailors, it made me think of this song.
Little sea
Yes.
shanty
There you go.
action right there.
Do you know
Yeah,
the
I
name
like
of
that.
one? Do you guys know the name of that one by any chance? I know
I
that's I'm
recognize
putting
the
you on
tune. I don't know the
spot.
name.
It sounds weird. I know like some of the words to
Uh-huh.
it, but I don't know what it's called.
It's called the Wellerman Sea Shanty, and you were totally right. All the sea shanties, they went viral on TikTok in 2021, at the beginning of 2021, and that one's the most famous one. I play that one because it brings a smile to people's faces. They love it every time.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But
I liked it a
that's what it
lot.
made me think of when you said sailor. So there we go.
Yeah.
So good.
Thank you.
Very, very fitting indeed.
So, what is a piece of advice that you would give to someone interested in learning a new instrument or wanting to learn how to compose music?
That's a really good question. Each instrument, there's specific advice I could probably give them. I am a multi-instrumentalist, so I do teach cello lessons, piano lessons, ocarina lessons, and some violin lessons. But with each one of the instruments that I teach, or anything I teach music related, I always try to get them to read music. I think reading music is just so important and such a valuable skill. And I think no matter what instrument or if you're singing anything, reading music is really, really important. So learning music and music theory is really, really a game changer in terms of that. Now, if somebody is interested in playing the ocarina, I would direct you to like 2 or 3 places that I think have some resources for that. First of all, because it's me that's talking, I have to say my YouTube channel. I have a whole bunch of tutorials on there. So if you're interested, not only do I have tutorials, but guides on like which ocarina to buy first and what a good beginner ocarina is, like how to get started, first couple of lessons. I have a whole playlist of those, and I'm actually trying to revamp them. Hopefully by December, I'm trying to revamp all my lessons so that way they're a little bit more like, because I gotten so much more experience and better sound setup, better camera setup. I want to try to revamp them so they look a little nicer too. But if you're interested in learning ocarina, there's also my friend David Eric Ramos. He was originally from San Antonio. He is an amazing ocarina player, influencer, and Latinx creator, and he has a lot of tutorials on how to play ocarina and a lot of history on like the history of the ocarina and how to be able to get started with that. So, and a couple of other books I would recommend is Chris Gale's method book, Ocarina Method, and David Eric Ramos' How to Play Ocarina. And I would also recommend my friend Robert Hickman's Serious Ocarina Player if you're really, really serious about playing ocarina. So those are the recommendations I would do. And finally, to get to the end of your question, if you're interested in composing music or writing your own music, the really first advice I would give you is get started. Even if you don't think it's good, get started with writing your lyrics, get started with writing your songs. If you don't have the technical knowledge of how to put together music, but you can hear music and you're thinking, this is the type of music I would like to make, and you can kind of hear it, get started. Do what you need to do. Get a keyboard, get a piano, get a MIDI controller, get an input, get something to play on digitally if you feel like that's where your music is. If you're more acoustic, try to get a piano, try to start hashing out learning and writing some chords. Get a guitar if you like to sing and play guitar. Writing music is really about telling a story and telling a message. And when I write music, that's really all I do. Being a composer or a songwriter is a really fancy way to say I'm a storyteller. That's really what I am. And so writing those stories and making that happen is really up to the person. You don't need to be the best musician to write music, but definitely knowing music theory, knowing how to play an instrument, and also understanding melody and harmony will make your composition so much more efficient because you'll have so many more tools to be able to tell your story.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to your first point, absolutely on like learning how to read the music. I played like the trumpet and the French horn for years. But the way that I knew them in my head was I would look at it and instead of knowing what note it was, I knew the fingerings that it was. And it's been so long that whenever recently I've been substituting part-time, I was substituting for like a band class, and the teacher was like, well, if you want, like you can play some of the instruments with the kids, like if you know how to play any of them. And I tried to pick one up, and when I say that, like I looked at the music and I was like, I don't know how to read this anymore.
Yeah.
It makes a difference.
That is totally understandable. With ocarina players, a lot of ocarina players get started with tabs, which means like the number of holes that you cover. And on my tutorials, I also do provide tabs and music. I'm really adamant and really passionate about providing the tabs underneath the musical note because I feel like when
Mhm.
you do that, it kind of conditions people's eyes to look at the music and look at the tab. So the music is up top, then the tab's at the bottom. If you can't figure out what the position is, I have that tab at the bottom. But it just goes note by note with the tab and with the music. And I'm really passionate about providing that information because I think that's really important. Most, if not 90% of my tutorials have that because like you said, it's hard to just read it, just read it, but it's much easier when you have that reference if you forgot what the position of each note is for trumpet or for whatever instrument. So that's a really good advice right there, I think. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I was gonna say that's how I sort of learned guitar, and I say sort of because I can't really play it anymore. But when I was kind of practicing guitar and stuff when I was younger, it was hard because I couldn't read the music. I didn't really have like that, and I'll be honest, I was not the best student. So whenever I found out about like tabs and that I could like learn how to play like specific songs, that was a really good way to kind of get me more into it. And I don't know if you've kind of experienced this with some of like your students and stuff before, but like learning a song can lead that want to discover and learn how to actually like read music and play music more. You know, it kind of is like that foot in the door, right? Like learning like one of your songs that you like.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail right on the head, Adam. I really did. I think that with learning music, the biggest obstacle a lot of the times is learning how to read it. And when you're trying to learn music, if you have a song you really love, a lot of the times tabs are a great start and a great tool. And I encourage people to use tabs. I just encourage them to use them as a learning tool and not always read the tabs because it's important to read the music because the music symbols can tell you so much more information than the tabs can. The tabs can tell you the position of the notes. They're easy to read. They're accessible for anyone. But a lot of the times, you don't know what the rhythm is. You don't know how the melody goes, right? So
Yeah.
it's important to be able to read both and to be able to, if you're starting out and you have no idea how to read music, look at those tabs first, get familiarity with them, learn a couple of songs, try to memorize them, and then go back and read that music. And you'll be so much more surprised at how much you could get out of your own performance just by trying to read the musical symbols and saying, oh, okay, G is on the second line of the treble clef. Or saying E is on the first line of the treble clef, right? Just taking a minute to slow down and look at it note by note, even though it's tedious, it just will make you such a much better musician in the long run. And you'll be able to play and have a lot more freedom over what you want to do and want to play.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Okay, I'm gonna ask another question, and then I think we're gonna go to Vanna question. I don't know if I didn't skip you, did I, Vanna?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so Nick, what would be if you had, and this might be a hard question. What would be if you had to guess like one of your favorite gaming music soundtracks?
Oh man, that is a very difficult question. Obviously, anything by Koji Kondo, Legend of Zelda,
Yeah.
anything, Super Mario, like so many wonderful things. Like one of my favorite things, obviously, is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Like obviously, people see this on the street and they're like, "Well, you gotta play Zelda." That's what they tell me, and I
Right.
go,
Love it.
and
Yeah.
every time they're like, wow, I can't believe how full it sounds. I can't believe that that's real. Like outside of the video game, you take that soundtrack out of the video game, out of the like MIDI virtual flute they were using, you put it in real life, and it just comes to life. You put it on the instrument it was meant to be played on, it just comes to life. It's really amazing. And honestly, that's like literally, I would say, one of my favorites. But another honorable mention, I hope you recognize this one. You recognize it?
That would be Undertale.
Yes!
Toby Fox.
Yes,
Yeah.
Toby Fox is also another composer I love. He's very efficient with the way he writes things, and there's a lot of really cool little moments that he has in the Undertale and Deltarune soundtracks. And honestly, one of my favorites is Megalovania because it's so engaging and it has such a simple little thing, but it also sounds really chaotic, kind of like Sans himself, like very, very chaotic. And it's like it takes you through all these different like harmonic and melodic changes, and you're like thinking, oh my gosh, that's kind of like Sans, how he manipulates time and things like that. So I really love that one as well. And of course, there's a lot more amazing gaming soundtracks out there. We're literally just scratching the surface.
There's so many.
Elder Scrolls, there is there's literally so many. Genshin Impact. There's some really good new ones. There's some really good like old ones. Like, oh my gosh, there's just so many.
There's so many. I know I have a whole playlist of video game music that I listen to all the time. So like at work and stuff like that, with my headphones in. So yeah, like I said, there's a ton. I knew that would be a hard question because that would be a hard question for me as well.
Yeah.
I think you were right though. I find that Nintendo does a pretty solid job of having some really memorable soundtracks. And fun little note about Toby Fox is he wrote the track in the newest Pokemon Scarlet and Violet trailer as well.
No way!
Yeah, because I follow him on Twitter, and yeah, he was talking about that. So I thought that was kind of cool. So I think he's going to be composing some of the music for the new Pokemon Scarlet and Violet games as well.
Oh my gosh!
So that's another fun thing to look out for when those games come out in November.
Amazing! I cannot believe that. Wow, I gotta check that out for sure. Thanks for telling me, Adam. Wow.
Yeah, of course.
That's so exciting.
I love that.
Well, hopefully that was all of our questions. Nick, do you have anything else that you want to touch on or add?
Thank you. I'm literally really honored to be able to be on y'all's platform, and I'm thankful that you guys are doing this because this is really necessary for a lot of people and for really a lot of our kind of like geek culture. There's a lot of I assume y'all are around my age, raised around in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
So I know that when I was growing up, I faced a lot of difficulty, for being a geek, especially for, I went to a mainly Latin American Mexican school where there was a really high Hispanic population. And a lot of the times, they just wouldn't really understand where I was coming from with anime or video games. And that back then was not exactly considered mainstream. So it was just really weird. Right. Of course, there were people like me that were Hispanic or even Mexican that were into, all these different video games, animes, and subculture geek things that had to do with this. But at that same time, it was not easy because there were people that just didn't understand that. There were people that when we were growing up, it wasn't like people were wearing anime shirts to school or kids would go to anime conventions like they do today. If you notice, if you've ever been to any schools today, anime is so mainstream. And it blows my mind because that's not anything that was before when we were growing up. People, I personally wasn't bullied or affected, but I've heard and I knew of people that, were bullied or, bothered because they could draw manga. Or they could do really cool little things with coding or video games and things like that. And people would really not leave them alone when we were growing up. Sometimes, in certain cases. Yeah. But as it turns out today that's really cool to do. I don't know. It kind of blows my mind. That's why I really appreciate what y'all are doing. Telling the story from the perspective of I like to think of us as kind of the pioneers of people who were really into geek culture and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing. For sure, especially subbing. Sometimes, I think recently I was in a 6th grade classroom and there was this table of kids and they were all talking about Demon Slayer. It was SpongeBob. You know what I mean? And I was like, what a different world that you're all growing up in. I would not have been able to have this kind of conversation.
Oh, yeah. No, I would have gotten probably bullied or picked on, like you said, had I been more vocal about some of my interests, like the gaming and anime and stuff like that when I was younger. So it is cool to see
that. Put that on the down low.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you kind of had to, right?
Yeah.
Well, and thank you so much for coming on and sharing your passion in music and how you found it, because I also think that that's a huge area where we've seen different things grow in popularity, but I feel like it's still growing in like awareness of that instrument and the different music and like playing the soundtracks. I feel like that's growing in popularity. And so it's so cool that you're one of the people that's also pioneering that genre.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I absolutely have to give a shout out to a lot of the people, in my community, in the Ocarina community, that have inspired me to continue doing what I'm doing. And I wouldn't feel okay without, going on somebody's platform and just saying a shout out to all the people. So I'm just going to go through like a little list of some of the people that have both inspired me and helped me gotten started. So basically, one of the biggest things, especially on Facebook, is Global Ocarina Community. That's a group of people. It's like 1,000 people, and there's just so many amazing ocarina players, ocarina experts, and just people that love the ocarina. They may not play it, but they really love it, so they're a part of that group, and that group kind of keeps me going. I mentioned David, my friend, earlier. Also, you may have seen on America's Got Talent, Freckled Zelda. She is a friend of mine. She's amazing. I absolutely respect and love what she's doing for the ocarina. She is probably the most famous ocarina player in the world, and she is just bringing that ocarina to the shorter platforms such as TikToks and Instagrams for younger people to see and grow up with. And, just her doing her performances as a fairy, I think, is so impactful and cool to the instrument and to the community. So huge shout out to her as well. To David Eric Ramos, to Jordan Moore, to Stephen Higby, to all the ocarina septets. There's like 3 ocarina septets in the US. And to Acabanda, Silverwind Ocarina, Shooting Star Ocarina, all these ocarina bands and ocarina inspired content creators that are just doing so much amazing stuff for the ocarina. Matt Hopwood, Louis Ocarina, the Ocarina Girl. There's just like, I could go down the list. There's so many, but any of those, just feel free to check them out. They are very active on all media platforms, and they're just absolutely the most sweetest, kindest, awesome people that I have to give a huge shout out for, because they inspire me every day to play and come out with new content.
So cool.
Thank
you for doing a shout out for all those folks
Yeah.
too. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, I watched Freckled Zelda on America's Got Talent. She's so good.
Yes, she's amazing. I was low-key mad at the judge because he was like, "You don't need the ocarina." And I was saying to myself, oh my gosh, the ocarina is an integral part of her performance. And she's also such an amazing singer too. My gosh.
Oh, her voice is beautiful.
Really, really, truly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nick. And thank you, listeners. Again, a big shout out to our special guest. You can follow him on Instagram at Ocarina Owl 11. Also, you can check him out on YouTube. What's your YouTube handle?
Ocarina Owl. All of my social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all of them are just Ocarina Owl across the board.
Perfect.
Thank you. Check out his new release. And remember, listeners, you can give us feedback at our email, thosecoupleofgeekspodcastinfo@gmail.com. Follow us. Find us on all the podcast apps, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, etc. Please feel free to follow us on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, and now TikTok. So stay tuned for next week's episode, and thank you again.